Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Latoya Foston, and I am the Executive Director of She Built This City. We are a nonprofit organization focused on igniting interest in the trades and construction for girls, career choosing women, and non binary individuals. We are thrilled today to have Jack Ossa with us to share about his story of entering into this space as a greater conversation that we've been engaging in this month around access and equity and our pledge 50-50 by 2030, diversifying the trades. Our pledge consists of three pillars: diversity, equity, and inclusion, which includes diversifying recruitment sources and ensuring that we have equal pay and living wages. We also discuss hospitable working environment. So that is place, space, and policy that is pro women. Do you have nursing mothers facilities? Do you have women locker room and PPE that fit women? And then the last space is investing in the future. That includes investing in technology, investing in workforce development strategies and solutions, as well as investing in youth. So our conversation today really focuses on a number of areas, but specifically the DEI space, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and ensuring that we are making the paths accessible to all. And as I was thinking about that, Jack and his story came to mind. Jack and I got a chance to meet last year over lunch, and I think I was in awe and just starstruck the whole time I was listening to his conversation, just understanding the many, many hurdles he had to overcome to establish his very successful business and what he's been doing to reach back. And so, Jack, we are thrilled to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about being here today and really looking forward to share my story and see how we can help others do the same.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to dig in, but first I'm going to read your bio and
Okay,
then we can continue with a conversational approach to just how you got to where you are today.
perfect.
All right, let me pull up here. So, Jack Ossa is the founder of Ossa Studio and host of the Power of Design podcast. Personally driven to improve people's experience of life, applying design principles to become a better version of themselves, grow their teams, their businesses, and their profits. With an architecture degree, Jack immigrated to the United States from Colombia, South America in 2001. Loaded with dreams, drive, and determination to pursue his dreams, Jack embarked in a journey of self improvement and positive thinking while becoming a skilled technical architect and design strategist. His mission in life is to empower people to pursue their dreams through the power of design and use entrepreneurship as a platform to explore the intersection of business, creativity, culture, and diversity to become a catalyst for positive transformation. That's amazing in and of itself. Thank you, Jack. Thank you for being here. And let's talk about first your studio, how you got here, and then what are some of the hurdles you had to overcome to achieve this success?
Well, I'm originally from Colombia, South America. I went to architecture school in Colombia and I'm the oldest of three brothers. So I grew up in a really nice environment, in Bogota, Colombia, which is a huge city with about 9 million people, very big and metropolitan. And since I was young, I always, used to watch TV, look at, the American Dream through movies, and I was always very interested about United States. I had the opportunity to come a couple of times when I was little with my parents. And during architecture school, I set myself the goal to be an architect in the United States, which at that time it was very up up in the sky goal. So after I graduated from architecture school, I worked for a couple of months for a small company and then worked for a bigger company for about 8 months. During that time, I saved all the money that I was making as I was living with my parents. And the economic situation in the country was not the best. And with $3,000 and my younger brother, we came to United States. So we initially went to Atlanta because that's where our cousins were living. So we were in Atlanta for about 2 weeks, and then we had another another trip planned to Charlotte because we had a cousin living here, but we had never been to Charlotte. So I told my brother, let's go this weekend. Let's go to Charlotte, then we come back to Atlanta and see what we're gonna do. So we came to Charlotte and we never left. It was a weekend trip that stayed for forever. Once we saw the city, we saw the environment, and was very impressed. There was a huge contrast between what Charlotte was at that time, and coming from Colombia, and specifically from Bogota, which is a very dense city. I just love the environment. It was very open, very green, very organized, and it kind of fit my personality. I felt like, man, this is my home. This feels good.
It's awesome.
So, like any immigrant, we came with a 6 month permit to be in the country as tourist. So we came and I started immediately looking for a place to stay. So in about a couple of weeks, I found an apartment that we rented for 3 months. I pay 3 months, and we bought a car for $1,000, and then we started, going up and down South Boulevard looking for jobs. My brothers found a job in construction, and I started working as a busboy at a restaurant. So
Yes.
during that time, it was very interesting. We had no furniture, we had nothing. We just had the apartment and groceries, the car and a phone that I got. And I was just so happy just to be here, having the opportunity to be so close to that dream that I had. And even though I was a busboy at a restaurant, I felt that I was one step closer to that dream.
Yes.
My English was not very good, so I spent a lot of time, reading newspaper in English, listening to the radio, kind of trying to practice. And and then it got to the point where I had to start understanding what does it take to be a professional in the United States, and how do you make your visa work and um, all that process. So during that time, I reached out to a lawyer to understand, and what I needed to do, and what you need is an H1B visa, which at that point it cost like $3,500, and a company should pay for it, and they be responsible for you in the country. So I started looking at how do I align myself with companies that might need the expertise that I bring, which at that
Yes.
time I was very, I was very good with AutoCAD drawing plans, doing production for architecture firms. So at the restaurant one day, I found the Yellow Pages book, and I ripped 3 pages with the architecture firms in Charlotte. And I will use my only one day off at the restaurant, which was Mondays, to just get up in the morning, get dressed and go to those firms. So,
Yes.
I didn't even send a resume because, I didn't know, wasn't familiar with the process. So I started going to these places. They said, hey, thank you. Do you have a resume? Can you come back? So kind of, literally knocking on doors. And one small company on South Boulevard, they said, hey man, what do you need? I said, I'm looking for a job, and I will show up with a portfolio of work that I have. So I
Yes.
had a school work and some of the professional experience I had in Colombia. So at that time, the architect said, hey, yeah, just show me what you have. So he showed me, I sit down with him, show the drawings, kind of explain what I was doing. And he said, man, this looks good. Why don't you come back in a week for an interview? So at that point, I had been in the country for about 3 months. And if I stayed 6 months, that I will be, out of status, I will be
Hmm.
legally in the country, which is something I didn't want to do. As I
Yeah.
always had that clock in my mind that if I rather go back to my country, but rather than staying illegally here, mainly because I could not practice as an architect. I could probably
Yes.
do any other jobs, but I will have always a ceiling on anything that I can do. So um, I met with a lawyer, understood what the process was, had the interview with these architects. They were very nice. They explained to me everything they did. And a couple of weeks later, they called me, say, hey, we like your work, we like what you're doing, um, but we don't really know how to check your references. We're not. we don't really know what to do. So I gave them the business card of the lawyer I talked to. Say, hey, there's this is lawyer I talked to. He knows all about the immigration process. Um, and they said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't you come for a week and let's do contract work for 1 week. We give you some task, with no commitment. We pay you for that week, and we see how that goes. So we see how you feel and how we feel. So it was, a crazy week in my life because I was still working as a
Yeah.
busboy. Go to the restaurant, clean the floor, clean toilets, bake bread, and all tasks that I had to do. And then I will go to this architecture firm, and they will give me floor plans, things to draw, and I will just draw like crazy. That computer was on fire. I was just doing my best because that was my ticket.
Yes.
So I worked for that week. It went very well. They said, yeah, we're gonna meet, we'll let you know. And about a month before my visa expired, the 6 months expired, I had a call from the lawyer I talked to, and they said, hey, just want to let you know this company just paid for your working visa. You start
Awesome.
next week. So
Yes.
it was a great experience. And now looking back in time, there are many things that happen at the same time. I think for sure, I think God opened opportunities for me to do that. On the other side, I was very proactive and focused to take steps forward and make decisions every single day. Also, the people I talked to, they had their mind and their heart open to provide opportunities to others, because they not only give me a job, they change my life, they change my family's life. It's amazing the impact that that small decision they made is having in many other people. So it was amazing. Then I worked with them for about 5 years, learn a lot, learn all the architecture practice focuses on doing my best. Then I switched to another company where I work about 5 more years, and I gain a lot more experience doing larger projects, more national projects. And then I switched to another company where I work about 6 years, and global international design firm where I learn a lot. During all that period, I also, well, at that restaurant where I was a busboy, I met my wife. So she was a waitress there. So, during
Awesome.
all that journey, we had 3 kids. So fast forward to, let's say, 5 years ago, I'm working as an architect at an international design firm. I have my family. I love everything that I'm doing. I travel, and I feel like, oh man, I made it, this is amazing.
Yes.
But somehow I had some discomfort in my heart and in my mind that I wanted to pursue my own dream, because I have my own ideas, my own attitude toward what my life should be. And I decided to take the leap and start my own business 4.5 years ago.
Yes.
So it was one of the best decisions in my life, because it allowed me to, one, take the risk, you know give up all the security I had. And I felt very similar to when I started as an immigrant. You really have to make it, there is no other option.
Yeah.
So that happened 4.5 years ago, and it's been amazing, growing my design firm with my own ideas, taking full responsibility of my ideas, of my failures, of my successes, um, having a clear direction, changing my mind, just having that authority to make decisions, to me has been very important. So within my company today, we're an architecture and brand design company. We do mainly commercial architecture, a lot of office buildings. We do adaptive reuse renovations, a little bit of residential. And at the same time, we also do work in the brand strategy area, where we help companies clarify what's the unique differentiator in the marketplace. And then we help develop strategies to communicate that. And that strategy might be a new brand identity, a new website, or even a social media strategy. So what I really see is that what we're selling is the power of design. That's why I started our podcast called The Power of Design, that explores the intersection of architecture, construction, and real estate, and how do we use the design process to improve our lives, to create value for community, and to help others achieve their goals as well.
Whoa. Jack, that is amazing. Hearing it again, even more so, just there's so many things that I feel pop out in your story. And one of the things I'd like to go back to and talk about is just the mindset and the mantra that you had to overcome. And you said success is really is your only option. So coming into the country and doing the busboy work, like I'd like to talk about that because I think the humility it must have taken for you to know that you were qualified and had an experience elsewhere, but here the work that you had to do to just make it was completely different. I think sometimes that humility can break people, and they don't know how to walk still in that confidence. Can you talk a little bit about that process and how you didn't let the present situation affect where you were going for the future?
Yeah, it's always a battle, and the fact that I've done it before doesn't mean that it's easier now. It's always hard because I'm now at the same place again, trying to grow my business, trying to achieve another goal that I might be even 10 times or 100 times bigger than what I had before. So I'm always in that place, and it's an interesting balance to me of two things. One, it's just perception of time. So we live in the present. That's the only thing that exists. The past is gone. The future doesn't exist, right? So creating a vision is key because you're creating that vision of the future, which eventually is going to be a present. And how do you make that vision very clear, very tangible, that it pulls you toward that? So one of the things is creating a very clear vision of the future, because if you don't have a destination, you will get nowhere, right? Having a destination, you don't have the certainty that you're going to achieve it, but at least you have a direction. You may
Absolutely.
get there, you may not, but you're going towards something. So that's key. And then letting that bigger and better future um, give you the attitude and the mindset and the emotional state you need to get there. So I'm not that defined by my current circumstances, but I'm more defined by my future circumstances. And you know how our brain has a hard time understanding um, reality versus dreams or ideas, right? For example, when we watch a sad movie, we feel sadness. We know the movie is not real,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We know they're actors, but we feel it. So it's very strong. Um, so really understanding that you can make that future a reality, it's key. And part of then you need to take the step to believe it, which is the hard part. So things that I do personally to believe that is, journaling every day when I write down where I want to be, how I want to do it, and stating it in the present tense. So my brain believes that that's a reality. And
Yes.
then somehow I start becoming that person. I start behaving like that person. And at some point I create the results that I'm looking for. The other thing is the confidence part that is very important, because you can only go as far as your confidence level. All right. If you don't believe you can do something, you're not gonna even try. So there is a concept that I use called the confidence loop.
Mm-hmm.
They call it the 4 C's. So the 4 C's starts with, the first C stands for commitment. You make a commitment to pursue your goal, right? At that point, you haven't done anything. You just made the commitment. You don't know if you're gonna make it or not. You might be scared, but you do it. The next C is courage. You need courage to go after that commitment, right? And courage doesn't mean that you're not scared, that you're not fearful. Courage means that you take steps toward the goal, even if you don't feel certainty, even if you feel scared, you still do it. Once you take that step, you realize that you develop new capabilities. That's the next
Mm-hmm.
C, capabilities. So that's pretty much you demonstrating yourself that you can do something you thought you were not sure you were going to do, right? And once you take that step, that becomes confidence because you prove it to yourself, right? The interesting thing about that is that you can do it in very simple, easy terms just to practice, right? Let's say, okay, if you want to increase your confidence, don't set yourself a goal of I'm gonna make $10 million, in 1 year. Well,
Hmm.
tell yourself I'm gonna exercise 5 minutes every day.
Right.
If you may have not done it. Once you do it, then you make the commitment, you have the courage, you develop the capability. And then you say, oh, you know what? I'm going to exercise 10 minutes. So it doesn't really matter what the goal is as long as you go through the process over and over again. And that starts growing your confidence. And then once you grow your confidence, that's a huge tool because your confidence defines how you feel about yourself. And that's key in any area of your life because when people interact with you, they're feeling that confidence, and we all want to be with confident people, right? When you're making decisions out of confidence, you're very direct, you're very clear, you know where you're going. It doesn't really assure you that you're right,
Right.
but you're taking the step and you're taking all the responsibility with you, right? You're assuming that even if I made a mistake, then I'm gonna fix it because I made the decision. So, understanding the time relationship of past, present, and future, and also understanding that confidence is a tool that you can take small steps to grow in it are two tools that I use to, keep growing, keep learning, and doing better things for me and my business.
That's so powerful. And as you are speaking, I'm over here taking copious notes because this relates to so many areas. I think when we first met, I was like, I need to come get you to speak with our students because it's about overcoming obstacles and what it means to set a vision. I love that. Like you set the vision, but then the vision drives you.
Correct.
And I think that's something that we can miss. And it can seem when you're in survival mode, just doing the task, you just, living day to day. If you don't set that vision for the future, you'll get stuck there,
Sure.
stuck there. And so that is something that I feel is key and vital. I'm sitting here like I'm making note to self, have Jack create handbook,
Yeah.
of a curricula that we can talk about with our students and our adults, because when we're trying to change a pathway, you have to change the way you think and
Sure.
the connection of your thoughts to your actions and how that works. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that process and from, like you said, from your own coming to the country, creating the platform, getting a sponsor for your visa, to creating your business? What does that look like in the day to day? How do you translate from the mundane of, I got to pay my bills, I got to, business prospect, and balancing that with visioning for the future? How do you make that work?
Well, we're not taught or educated on working on our thinking. So
Yes.
one of the most important things we all should do is thinking about our thinking,
Hmm.
because our lives move in the direction of our strongest thoughts. And since we are little, nobody tells you that you can think about your own thinking, you can change your own thinking, because the things that we think define the results that we get. So we're used to not having control over our thinking. And it's hard. I mean, gaining control over your thinking is really hard, but it's possible. So by default, we are just driven by social media, other people, advertising. So we start thinking what others are thinking, or we're thinking about what others want us to think, right?
Yes.
So we work on somebody else's priorities. We put some other aspects of our lives behind us, and we put other aspects in front of us because we think that's the way it is. So understanding that that is possible is number one, right?
Yeah.
If you don't believe it, then you're not even gonna try. So yeah, of course I have to deal every day with invoices, bills, paying for things. I'm a father of 3 children. I need to interact with the world. I need to sell. I need to do many complex things in the world every single day. So what I do is not neglect my thinking. And I have another process where I always look at my life with, imagine your life is a car, right? And
Mhm.
you're driving to life, and you cannot control the road. The road could be very rocky, or it could be open, could be paved. That's life. We don't know what's happening. However, it's your car. You're driving it. You can do maintenance on that car, right? You need to make
Mhm.
sure at least the car is in good shape. That's the only thing you can do. And to me, that's who we are. And that car, it's our areas of life. And I see four wheels as one wheel is going to be the spiritual wheel, because we all have a spirit.
Mhm.
We have a mental wheel because we all have a mind. We have a physical wheel, which is our body. And we have a relationships wheel because we relate to others and we relate to ourselves. So the way I try to do is, how do I maintain those four wheels every day? And there is a little bit of work in it, right? We typically focus on the physical will because we are just physical entities and we get up and eat and do stuff, and the mental one, right? When we
Yes.
think we are professional life, and we tend to neglect the spiritual will. That's the big one, because in my mind, what I understand is we are spiritual beings having a material experience.
Mhm.
So every day I try to have some work on my spiritual life, on my mental life, on my physical life, and on my relationship lives, right? And the idea is that each of those wheels are balanced. Some people have one wheel that is huge and they're two that are flat, or one that is flat, and we get used to living through that and running our car at 15 miles per hour. And when we see somebody running at 100 miles per hour, we're like, "Hey, how do they do that?" Well, it's possible. We all have it. It's just you need to take care of all the areas of your life. So what I do is, I have a schedule called the ideal week, from Monday through Sunday, where I have times assigned to any area of their life. And it's usually, the biggest thing to me is in the morning. So in the morning, I wake up early, I exercise, I read, I listen to podcasts, I write, I work on all those things early before getting into the world. Because the moment you step out into the world and you start communicating to others, looking at devices, your focus is gone, right?
Yeah.
So getting that early in the morning, getting the focus early in the morning, it's important, because now you have more energy and you have more perspective to engage with the day-to-day decision making, because we're overwhelmed with decisions, we're overwhelmed with information and situations. So we need to be very centered and clear in order to make those, interact with the world with confidence.
You should see my notes. I'm I'm like, yes, yes. I miscategorize this conversation. Like every entrepreneur needs to be a part of this and hear what you're sharing, because you're talking about so many key nuggets. You've get the confidence wheel, the car analogy about how we move forward. All of those things are, I think, to your point, thinking about how we're thinking. That is the difference, because the skill sets, are the same. You can go take a business course, you can take an architectural course, but it's the thought process and how you see obstacles,
Mm-hmm.
how you attack your day and not let the day attack you.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that will take you from each of the levels in your life.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, yeah.
There is a saying that says that there are three types of people: people who make things happen, people who watch others making things happen, and people who wonder what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So is your decision to be one of those three.
Yeah.
You can be any of those. And all that work, it's all about inner work.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at your own thinking and your own life and your own spirituality of your own body. We focus so much on others and what others are doing and their successes and what they have or what they don't have, and then comparing it to others, that we lose this time and energy to be really working on the only tool we have control of, which is our own self.
Absolutely. So I'm going to leave that space a bit, because I could go further, because you've shared so many nuggets. And like I said, I did a disservice to this conversation by not focusing on the entrepreneurs in our network, because these nuggets are priceless. But that's how it will be marketed moving forward,
Sure.
because this is priceless information, both for our aspiring entrepreneurs, but also the women in this space. I want to dig a little deeper into the process. So one of the concepts you've talked about is a practical one that you mentioned for the visa and needing to get a company to sponsor you. As you were speaking, I was thinking about a conversation we had this weekend with author Minda Harts around the memo about how women of color can secure a seat at the table. And she also talks about sponsorship, but in a different context of like having someone who sponsors you, meaning that they are in a room that you're not allowed access to. They can speak your name, speak your voice,
Yes.
give credence to your experiences. And so as you were speaking, I was noticing the parallels of those experiences. And so I'd love to hear more about the actual sponsorship, but also what other ways have people sponsored you to get to where you are, in the sense of having allies, having relational capital, social capital to move for your experience? Because I know that you had that for you, but you've also now done that for others. So I'd love to talk about that sponsorship, both the actual, but then also the metaphorical sponsorship that has helped in the process.
Yeah. So we need to engage with other people in the world, right? And
Mhm.
to achieve our goals, we need other people to be part of that.
Yes.
So we cannot do it on our own. And yeah, there are many people who are maybe in positions or have certain aspects of their life, or maybe they have done what we want to do. So there's always people who can help us. So now the question is, okay, how do you engage with them? How do you show up? And how do you leverage who they are to help you achieve your goals? So, by definition, at the beginning, that sounds like, okay, you don't want to go ask. Sometimes we feel embarrassed. We don't want to feel these things. And that's applicable to anything, even if you need just some money, right? Going to somebody, say, hey man, I don't have money, or, I need help with this. So one is just, we need to get rid of that. People want to help people. That's one thing,
Yes.
one of the things I realized. We need to ask. Sometimes we miss a lot of opportunities because we just don't ask. There is nothing wrong with asking. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the worst thing that can happen. So even if it's somebody way up there, or very famous, or somebody that is kind of like in your circle, and you would love to talk to them, and you're not doing it, just go take the first step. I mean, the worst
Yes.
thing that can happen is that they say no later, or talk to somebody else, or direct you somewhere. So just ask. That's a big one. And I
Mhm.
even applying that today to my business. There are many opportunities that I miss because I just don't ask, because
Yes.
I feel sometimes like that. I don't want to look needy. I don't want to seem salesy, but there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you are decent, and you're just not overwhelming the person, there's nothing wrong with that. That's one thing. The other one is when you start using who you are, your talents, your gifts, your uniqueness, to show others what you bring to the table, which it's something that I do as well through social media with my podcast, which is showing people what's my unique point of view. How do I engage with the world? What should they expect when they're interacting with me or my business? And at that point, I'm attracting people, right? So
Mhm.
you can go to them, or you can attract them. And the beauty of social media today is that that is free.
Yes.
You can do it anytime. You can do a podcast, you can have a YouTube channel, you can do post, you can do Instagram, talk about your own thinking, talk about what you can do, your expertise, and add value to others. So that's the best, to me, that's the best way to engage, because by nature, humans, if when somebody does something for us, we want to give it back, right? When somebody pays for your lunch, we say, I'll pay the next one. All
Yes.
right. So start adding value selfishly to others, right? Help them.
Mhm.
Go do something for somebody. If there is somebody that's important, that you want to talk to, well, maybe do a bit of research, understand what they value, and go help them. Give before you ask. That's another technique. So
Mhm.
giving it's always a good strategy because you don't have to worry about that specific person giving you back. Life gives to the giver and takes from the taker. You
Yeah,
just give everybody, and at some point that's going to come back to you one way or the other. You just release it once you do it, and have peace of mind that you did your best.
absolutely. There are a number of opportunities I know in my own life where um, I've had to look at the giving piece. And I think that's an ethos. I know that's an ethos of She Built This City is we partner first of what we can do together. Our founder, Demi, that's when she was first starting the nonprofit. She just started making stuff for people like, oh, you need a music rack? You need, what is this? And so that's an ethos within our organization as well. And you're absolutely right.
Hmm.
Life gives to the givers. That's an awesome, awesome point. I want to dig a little deeper because I recall some things from your story that we discussed in our first conversation that we haven't had a chance to dig in now.
Hmm.
And one of the areas that stood with me and has stayed with me is the process you had to go through to, I think it was like to get a certification here or get your degree here and having to translate the curricula.
Yeah.
You talk about sort of what that process was like and what you needed to do to ensure that you had the same certifications in this country that you had in your home country.
Yeah, so part of the challenges we face as immigrants, and specifically when you have a degree from another country, is that it's typically not valid in another country. So my architecture degree was not valid here, right?
Yes.
Which, it makes sense. They don't really have any control of what somebody else is teaching, and that's understandable. So I think the process had changed from what I did years ago, but still, you need to basically prove to the entity that certifies your degree here. So in my case, the
Mm-hmm.
Board of Architecture, they had a process where they needed to evaluate the degree, right? So in order
Yes.
to evaluate, when you think about it, you need to be very detailed. They need to know, okay, what is it that you show? So in my case, I had to research what are the standards of architecture education in the United States, right? And that includes number of courses, credits, content of the classes, years, like this is a basic education, and every
Mm-hmm.
university college will have their own version of that, as long as they meet those requirements. So the task for me was I had to take everything I went through on my education, and number one, translate it to English because it was everything in Spanish. Two, I had to work with math for a long time and Excel because the grading system, it was different down there than here. And then you have the fact that the names of the classes might be different, or I may
Yeah.
have seen some topics one year versus the other. So I had to
Yeah.
work on these spreadsheets, and I worked on this for about 2 years, when I had to go, okay, if the standard is this one, I met those requirements here and here with these numbers, right? And you kind of create a matrix of equivalency.
Yes.
And then you send that package, and at that time it was like $3,000. You send the package to the Board of Architecture, and they compare it, and they say, okay, yeah, we agree or disagree. And at some point, if they find any deficiencies that you didn't have some specific course or education, you have to go and take it to a university or community college, whatever that is. And that's a roadblock that I will say most of architecture professionals get stuck right there.
Yeah.
Because, one, they're not willing to do the work because it's a lot of work just to do the process. And as long as you work for somebody else, you don't really need your degree to be equivalent, because you're not signing and sealing plans. You're not a licensed professional. You don't have any
Right.
liability. And so that's one. The other one is when they find deficiencies. Sometimes, you're an adult, you're working, you have bills, and then if you have to go and take, let's say, if you need to do a design course in
Yes.
architecture, that's like 6 hours a day for 2 days a week. It could be very heavy, and
Right.
it's just unfeasible. So it's really hard. So in my case, I only had to fulfill English composition,
Yeah.
which I did it at here at CPCC Community College at night during 3 months. And once I completed that course, they check and say, okay, now your degree is equivalent, which is
Okay.
huge because at that point is as if I had graduated from here, and then
Hmm.
I need to still need to start over through the whole process of becoming a licensed architect.
Right.
But I think that's one of those things where when we talk about diversity and inclusion and being an immigrant, I don't know if you have seen that video where they trying to explain um, what it's inequality, and there is just basically a race and some people move ahead.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. Like I had to start back, right? So I'm
Yes.
like, okay, take 20 steps back, now start running. And I feel that every day, even today, as owner of a minority owned business, I
Yes.
feel that all the other companies are here, and I'm 10 steps back, and I want to go to the same place, but I'm always trying to catch up, always trying to
Yeah.
catch up because of stigma, because of just perception. I'm really living it right now. Many opportunities that I want to get to, and I just
Yeah.
don't even have the relationships. I don't have the history, and I don't have a lot of cultural, mm, I don't know what that is, cultural environment or context in
Yeah.
order to get there. And I think that's one of the biggest disadvantage that immigrants and minorities have when we're trying to compete in the marketplace.
Absolutely. Thank you for pointing that out because I wanted to go a little bit deeper. It's probably my last question
Sure.
here. Well, maybe second to last because there's two areas that I want to talk about. I absolutely love how you have marketed and branded your process as the design process because it's not just the architecture piece, it's designing your brand. So it's the social media and the marketing piece, but
Yep.
design is the underlying component. I absolutely love that. So I want to talk about that, but before we get there, if you could design a system where equity was a reality for someone like you coming into the country with the knowledge and the skill set, because it's a different conversation when you come to any space, whether it's your job or anywhere else, and you don't have the prerequisite knowledge, but you had the knowledge, but you still couldn't get the access. So let's talk brainstorm, like if we could create a system that was void of barriers, what would that process have looked like for you? What would that be like?
It doesn't have to be complex. It's just a
Yes.
simple system, which is a set of rules that they said, hey, you're here. Okay. Do you want to do this? Sure.
Yes.
Just do these things, like give you a list. That's
Yeah.
it. Because that's honestly what we need to do. If you have the drive and the willingness to do it, then you go ahead and execute. If you don't want to, that's fine. It's your own choice. But just a clear path,
Yeah.
which is interesting. Talking to you, I'm all the time thinking about what I'm going through right now with my business is
Yes.
exactly what I went through when I was trying to get a job here.
Yeah.
Nobody told me, nobody showed me. I didn't, years later is when I realized, oh my God, I should have done it this way. I think what I'm going through is just out of my own drive and pushing through every single day. I make things happen,
Yeah.
but I'm probably taking the hard road because I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the information, I don't have the relationships.
Yeah.
So I'm trying just to make it work on my own terms. If somebody told me when I started my business, hey, you want to get access to these projects, you should meet this person, and in this entity is the one who creates that and get this certification and do this. Nobody tells you that. So I
Yeah.
had just to learn on my own after years of making mistakes to finally get connected to the right person, or finally understand that I had to complete certain certification. It's just access to information.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that's really where the power is. Those hidden rules that no one tells you, but you know they exist,
Uh-huh.
but no one tells you about it. That's
Yeah.
the piece. All right. So my last question is about how you grew your company and the connections from, like I said, the architectural design piece to the branding design, your podcast, and then when we last talked, the satellite office you have back in Colombia, and sort of
Hmm.
how you were able to make that bridge there.
Yeah. So where I used to work before I started my own firm, that is the largest architecture firm in the world with about 50 offices, and it's very connected. So I became very familiar with working with people in other countries,
Mm-hmm.
and specifically with an office they had in Costa Rica. So just because I was the only one that spoke Spanish here at this office, to me it was very easy to communicate with them and
Yes.
develop friendships and started working together, doing projects, and it worked very well. And with technology, it's amazing all you can do. What would the way you and I are talking right now, it doesn't matter if you're here or if you're in Spain or Japan, we're
Right.
still talking and communicating. So just leveraging technology to make things work was a really good thing that I learned. So when I started my company, that's the first thing I did is work with somebody in Colombia, where
Mm-hmm.
basically they are not just a freelancer or contracted employee, they are part of the firm.
Mm-hmm.
They only work for the firm, and that's it. And it's a win-win situation, because they usually get paid very well, because they're paying in dollars. Once you do the exchange of money, it adds a lot of value to them. There is a lot of flexibility, because they might be working from home. They can do whatever they want with their time, as long as all the tasks are completed. So I've been using that since I started my business. um, Also, growing the business, it's been interesting in terms of competing in the marketplace, because business is business, and this is about profits, and people want to put their own interest first. and and
Mm-hmm.
and, yeah, and that's what I do. I'm basically trying to put my family first, because I need to provide for my family. So you're always trying to see how do you add value, but also trying to protect what you're going after. So when I started in 2017, I used to do a lot of design work, graphic design and web design for vendors that will come to sell architectural products to me, because they want you to specify the products. Since
Yes.
I'm the target customer, I know exactly what we like, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I started designing logos and business card, things like that, for vendors, and it became a business. I started adding a lot of value, and I started helping people, and then I realized I had a unique position in the marketplace to bring the architectural world, which is basically thinking in 3D,
Mm-hmm.
translating into 2D, right? When you look at the digital world or the printed world, it's design, but they're different worlds, flat versus 3D. And I realized I could bridge that gap very easily. I'm very familiar and versatile in both areas. And then I started digging into, marketing, branding, sales. What is the purpose of marketing? What is the purpose of branding? How do you really leverage communication to improve your business? And it became another stream of revenue, where currently we sell architectural services. We sell brand strategy, which is specifically consulting, just
Mm-hmm.
helping people go through processes to understand how do you sell and why and what's the value. And third is brand design, where we can
Yeah.
do the actual website design, when we can do graphic design, social media strategies. And that's amazing, in terms that one is three sources of revenue, so business wise is good. The other thing is, to me, keeps my life very interesting and rich, because I'm always bridging all these areas, and to me is the same thing. And
Yes.
they also, sometimes in the marketplace, people have a hard time understanding that you can provide services that are so different, but they're not that different.
Right.
So sometimes it's hard to communicate that. So that's my own branding problem.
Well, it made sense to me, Jack, and I am intrigued by that concept and how you think, how you overcome obstacles, how you create paths where there were none before. Those are things we want to engender into our curricula for our students. And
Sure.
so I'm going to be laminating these notes and thinking through, what does it mean? Because that's the kind of stamina you need to make a name for yourself. And I want to assure you that anything that She Built This City can do to elevate your voice, get your company out there, we'll be doing that. We'll be
Thank you
sharing
so
your
much.
story. I'll continue to reach out about ways we can connect. My brain is going 100,000 miles an hour of like, what are ways that we can directly engage, because these lessons that you learned are priceless and do make the difference between thinking about it versus being it. And so you have that assurance from me that we will be doing that as well. And I wanted to give you the last few minutes for the audience that will be viewing this from our website, from our pledge, entrepreneurs. What do you want them to know about you, about Jack Ossa, and then also about Ossa Studios?
Well, I wanted to know that that I'm here. That's number one. Getting
Yes.
people to notice who you are.
Mhm.
That I want to create a platform in my business, be a platform so we can help others, so we can provide opportunities to others. I want to multiply 10,000 times what I've been what I've been given as opportunities. And and there is a lot of value in connecting the dots, right? Sometimes we get so blind by our focus that the answer might be on the other side or in a different industry and with a different person. It's just a very small shift that we can do in
Yeah.
order to help each other. So I try to network with professionals, not only the design and construction industry but any other industries. I have a lot of
Yes.
great conversations even through my podcast. I'm trying to open it up a little bit more because there is a lot of value that we can bring into each other once we start bridging those barriers.
Bridging those barriers. Absolutely. Well, Jack, I know you're a very busy man. I appreciate you opening up time on your schedule for She Built the City for this conversation. Again, this is around our pledge for equity 50/50 by 2030. And stories and voices like yours have to be heard. We have to elevate the process, the struggle, so that we can highlight that there is a difference. Like you said, in that race, not everyone is starting at the starting line. There
Hmm.
are people who are, 10 steps behind and have hurdles and don't have shoes and like don't
Yeah.
know the path.
Hmm.
And but we're still expected to achieve at the same level. So we need to highlight these stories, these voices, these experiences so that we can together work towards a more equitable space. So
Awesome. Thank you
I
so
am grateful
much.
for your time. Thank you all for joining us today. This is the end of our series. This is the last day as we close it out. So you'll be hearing more from She Built the City about how you can commit to this pledge and what we'll be doing to push stories like this forward. Thank
Awesome.
you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, Jack. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.